Now we're live.
Showtime. That's what I'm supposed to say. We're live. You stole my line.
Oh.
Well, listen. Thanks for hanging out with me again. You know, the last time we chatted, you were on a bit of a group chat, and Ashley opened the show, but you closed it out with a couple smokers over the home plate and built up quite a little bit of a following. People saying, "Well, who is she, and when is she coming back?"
All right, now.
So for everybody listening, you know what, Ebony? You tell them who you are and why you're awesome and where you're from and where you are now.
All right, so I'm Ebony YusefWateef. I am originally from New Orleans, Louisiana. I'm currently living in Cali, Colombia. I've been here about 2.5 years. I'm a lawyer by trade, but I'm here doing the expat thing of teaching English, and I'm great just because I'm great. Well,
here's what I'll say is, you said two things, but you said them kind of flippantly, and I want to go back on that. You said, I'm doing the expat thing, and I'm here in Colombia. One of the things that we can't do is make light of the fact. It's very easy because we're around each other and around our other friends to forget, excuse me, that we get to lead these amazing lives. And one of the things that I try to do here at my channel, besides talk a lot of shit, is show people how it's actually not that complex. And you said doing the English teaching thing. I did a video called Making Money Overseas. And one of the things I told people, and you're my living example, regardless of what you do in the United States, if you're an American with an American education and you get some sort of a teaching accreditation or certification of some sort, which helps, some places don't demand it, but it helps. Right. You can make an above middle class income no matter where you are, regardless of whether it's in the East, like China and Japan, or in Colombia. Before I moved into my job where I do a lot more editing and copy editing now, which you and I are going to talk offline about that. So I'm always looking to expand the team under my company umbrella. Company is such a big word, more like a loosely affiliated team of, it's like the Avengers if we didn't have any superpowers. And we're very good actors. And I don't want to lose track of that, but what I want to hear from you, because you've been in Colombia a while, and Colombia is one of those magic cities. A lot of people talk about, oh, I want to go to Colombia. I want to go to Colombia. I've never been to Colombia. What brought you to Colombia, and how many cities have you lived in?
Okay, so I have only lived in Cali, but I have been pretty much everywhere. I've been to Cartagena, Barranquilla, Santa Marta. I've been all over the coffee region, Armenia, Pereira, Manizales. Of course, I live in Cali. I've been to San Andres, which is the island in the Caribbean. Been to the Amazon. Like, I have done it. I've made sure that I've gone everywhere. There's like 2 places I haven't gone. One is La Guajira, which I believe is in the north. It's the desert. And then there's this place, it's called the River of 7 Colors. And it's in the south. And I haven't gone just because everyone's saying that it's kind of dangerous to travel in that area because of like drug trafficking, and there isn't like a lot of law enforcement in that area. So yeah.
Oh, well,
but I don't know, because the part of the thing is that in my observation, I feel that a lot of Colombians, the view that they have is based upon things that have happened in the past, and they haven't really seen how their country has changed. Because if I listen to Colombians, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't leave out of my apartment. Like, yeah, they make it, which you should be cautious, but I think things have changed.
Okay, that's fair. On the one hand, I always have faith in the people on the ground, because if someone on the ground there says maybe it's not a good idea, I would be hard pressed to disagree with them. But you're there as well, and I think maybe you may have a more open mind. Often we're more harsh on ourselves than anyone else could possibly be. Let me back up. A lot of people don't know the Amazon River is not just in Brazil.
No, it flows through Colombia, Peru, and Brazil, I know for sure. Because there's this place, it's called the Tres Borders, and basically it's where Colombia, Brazil, and Peru meet. Right. And so for Colombia, the main city is called Leticia. And then I think it's Tiquibanga, something like that, is the city in Brazil. And I forget the name of the city in Peru. But basically, when you're in that area, you can cross and go back and forth between the borders without having to go through like immigration or anything.
Well, depending on what passport you originally hold, that's possible.
Right.
Depending on what passport you hold. I know for Americans, passport procedures are often more difficult for us than they are for other people because they will have a reciprocation agreement, meaning whatever our government demands of them, they will demand of us, which means if we have extraordinarily difficult, and I'm not saying it's a good thing or a bad thing, but if we have extraordinarily difficult immigration processes, they're going to make sure the same is true for us. It wasn't until I started traveling the world that I realized so many places didn't even need visas because they just had reciprocation. And so it is what it is. It is what it is. I just tell everybody, don't let that stop you. Don't let that stop you. Do it anyway. Do it anyway. And so what is the culture like there? I mean, as Americans, we know what our culture is like. What were the most surprising things you found, not just in Colombia, but Santiago de Cali and in Colombia in general? What are the things that made it a unique experience out there?
Well, for me, I can say I never experienced culture shock per se. Okay. Being from New Orleans, we have like a huge, well, probably not as big as other places, but we have a Latino population. And then I was already into, one of the things that brought me here was my love of salsa dancing. So I was already kind of on or in the Latin scene. And then ironically, growing up, one of my best friends was from Bogota. And so I guess it wasn't a big transition for me. And I'd been studying Spanish since I was in 5th grade or so. So really? I didn't really have that culture shock, which is one of the reasons why I chose to come here. And also because most people don't know that Colombia has the 3rd largest Afro population in the diaspora. So I believe is Brazil number 1, and then the United States is number 2, and Colombia is number 3. And most people are not aware of that. And so I like the fact that I can blend in as well. So that was another thing that drew me here.
Okay, well, now here's my question. Can you blend in? Because I've been told many times, while it's not necessarily a bad thing, that I'll never blend in. They say, people, Americans have been here 30, 40 years. Simply how we walk down the street says we're not going to blend in.
I've heard that, but no, here until I speak, people assume that I'm a Caleña. And then also once I tell them I'm American, people will argue down there like, okay, yeah, you were born there, pero tus raíces, like your familia, like they're Colombian. And I'm like, no one's Colombian. As far as I know, we're all from the United States. Because
you blended in so well.
Yeah, I guess. And one thing about Cali is that there's a huge Afro population. And so, yeah, we just kind of blend in unless once people hear me start speaking, then it's like, okay, where are you from? You're not from here. But prior to that, no, they just assume that I'm Colombian.
Wow. See, here, people that I've known for a short period of time, people I've known since the day I set foot in the country, they said very clearly, and they laughed, they said, no, you will never be confused for a Brazilian. There's something about the way that Americans carry themselves. Some people can call it arrogance. Some people can call it, either way, it's just one of those, no, it's not going to happen for you. And, language-wise, when you start speaking Portuguese here, one of the things that I'm not taking the blame off myself, one of the things that happens is everyone wants to try to speak English with you, or they'll run and grab someone that speaks English because I'm fighting them, saying, no. Yo preciso muito praticar o meu Portuguese. I need to practice my Portuguese. No. I can speak English. Or they'll go grab one of their friends that speaks English. And it's like, no, I need to. And it makes it difficult. Yes. I think that's something that happens in Sao Paulo, Brazil, which is a big part of it. If anybody's watching, if they have any questions, let me see if anybody has any, if anybody's popped in to say hello. Truth Seeker. Hey, what's up, Truth Seeker? He's somebody that leaves a lot of interesting comments on my page, and we like to go back and forth on a couple different discussion points. So I always enjoy seeing him. So is it because you had the language under control before you came that you didn't have such a big culture shock?
No, I'm not gonna say I had the language under control because I am still not bilingual or fluent in Spanish. But I feel it wasn't. No, because like you, the thing is that first of all, I teach English in a bilingual school. And so all of the teachers, whether they're foreign or if they're Colombian, they have a great command of English. A lot of the teachers actually have dual citizenship or they lived in the United States. So everyone speaks English. The students speak English. All of my friends were foreigners and they speak English. And then like you, when you do meet Colombians, they always want to take the opportunity to practice their English, or, you know, they find someone who speaks English. So now I truly understand. Before I was like, how could someone live in the United States for 30 years, 20 years, 10 years and not learn the language? I completely understand now. It is very possible.
You have to make a serious effort though, because one of the things, and this might sound political, I never wanted to be a bad immigrant.
Right.
I've always said, if I'm going to go to a country to visit, that's one thing. If I'm going to go to a country to actually be there for a while, I have an ethical obligation to say, you know what? I'm going to learn this language, or at least be able to demonstrate to them. But let me back up. You studied for years before you got there. Then you got there and you've been there for a couple of years, but you would say you're still not fluent?
No, I am not fluent. So yes, I studied from about 5th grade. I used to represent my high school in state competitions. I went to college, took the exam, tested out of the maximum hours. Yes, and minored in Spanish. But then, I mean, I've been out of college 20 years, I think. So I didn't really use the language in that time, but I came here thinking, 6 months, a year, I'll be fluent.
Right.
I've been here 2.5 years, and no, like when I first arrived, people would speak to me and it was like, what? But part of the thing is the way that we learn, or at least the way that I learned Spanish in school. It's like, I don't know what you call it, but it's basically repeating. So like red, rojo, yellow, amarillo. And so when I first arrived, I was translating in my mind as people were speaking to me. And so of course I would miss things. So it took me a good year. Now I can understand. So I'm to the point, people can speak to me and I can understand what they're saying, but responding is difficult. I can respond, but it's a very basic, well, probably not basic, but I'm not fluent. I don't speak perfectly. Like I make errors, especially with the verb conjugation. Sometimes my tense may be off. They understand and they can get the gist of it, but I don't, I can't speak on the same level that I can in English.
I have a question now. Is the Spanish we're learning in American schools generic Spanish, or is it Spanish specifically for a country?
Well, so it's generic Spanish. And then the thing about Spanish is that each country has its own words or things like, okay, for instance, in Spanish class, I've always known a dog is a perro, right?
Huh.
But here in Colombia, it's a cachorro.
Really?
Or,
wait, did you say cachorro?
Cachorro, yeah.
In Portuguese, it's cachorro.
Yeah. And then like another thing, like house. I've always known it to be casa, but here is hogar. So, but then also in between the different countries, because I've been to some other countries in Latin America, and then even in the United States, like I had friends from Honduras and friends from the Dominican Republic and Puerto Rican friends and Colombian friends. And so within the Spanishes, I guess, if that's the proper way to say it, they all have like their unique terms. Like even within Colombia, there's like regional Spanish. So there's different things that the Caleños, which are the people in Cali, would say, opposed to the people, the costeños, the people on the Caribbean coast, or I think the Rolos, or the people in Medellin, and then the people in Bogota. So even within the country, like you have different terms that you say. Because I'm not fluent in Spanish, I don't hear it. But when you speak to like native Spanish speakers, they even say that, yeah, I can't understand the people on the coast when they talk, or I can't understand people from, you know, Peru or Argentina when they speak. So I don't know. It's interesting.
Well, here in Brazil, you get a lot of internal prejudice towards accents because there is a friendly kind of rivalry between Sao Paulo, Brazil, and Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, because they like to characterize each other as different things. But there are people from the Northeast, which the best example I could give in the United States would call it the Deep South.
Okay.
The Northeast in Brazil. And you find a lot of people, if you have a Northeastern accent, it really does limit you. Because unfortunately, the Northeast didn't have access to a lot of the benefits of education that some of the larger cities had. And you find a lot of them in service area jobs that may not be the most desirable, things like that. And so that happens a bit here. But in any case, back to Colombia, you told me you went there because of your hobby.
That was part of it, yes, salsa dancing.
So tell us about your salsa dancing.
So yeah, I started dancing salsa in New Orleans, and when I decided to move abroad, so my criteria was I wanted to be in a Spanish-speaking country because I had a desire to become fluent. I wanted to be somewhere that was hot year-round. This is the city of eternal summer. It's always in the 80s at night, and in the morning it might drop to the 70s, but pretty much it's in the 80s. Sunshine every day. We have like a rainy season, but it rains. It's never a terrible rain. I mean, I'm from New Orleans, so it's nothing compared to that. So yeah, hot weather, Spanish. And then I discovered Cali, which is the salsa capital of the world. I mean, if you like salsa, this is the place. You are gonna hear it in grocery stores, on the streets, like everywhere you go. You have to love salsa. In the club, it's straight salsa. Like you're not gonna get any bachata, no puta, no merengue, none of that mixed in. Like it is straight salsa all night. So for my friends who were here that are like not into salsa, they did not enjoy it. But for me, I was in heaven. The other thing though is that the style of dancing. So I don't know if you're into salsa, but there's what's called like
I put it on my tortilla.
Okay. So yeah, you know, there's like on one and on two, and then there's like the Cuban style where the footwork in Cali is a whole nother thing. It took a while for me to get into it because I was, I guess, biased because it wasn't what I was accustomed to, and I would look at it and
were you accustomed to the Cuban?
Well, no, I dance on one, and I do a little bit of on two. So it's basically like with music, there's an 8 count. And so if you dance on one, you take that first step on the one. And then there's some people who dance on what's called on 2. And then Cuban style, I think, is what they call rueda, which is in the circle when it's like a group of men and women and like you kind of interchange your partners. But the Caleño style, it's just with partners, but yeah, the footwork. Actually, with the international competitions, I learned since moving here that oftentimes the like people who win first place are usually Caleños.
Really?
Yeah, and then actually there's this show, I don't know because I don't watch it. So I want to say it might be the one So You Think You Can Dance, whichever one J-Lo is on. So it's this group here Oh God, and just because I'm talking about it, I can't remember the name. But they're a really famous salsa group, and Jennifer Lopez does a lot with them. Swing Latino is the group.
Okay.
And they have a salsa school here in Cali, and they do social dances. So yeah, Swing Latino.
Gotcha. We got some people in the chat room. Tommy Wheeler just said, interesting, but Craig was talking about how Cuban and Puerto Rican, how they're all different. And I asked him if he dances. So that may, again, I'm not a dancer.
Okay.
You know, I've got just enough coordination to call myself, you know, sometimes I do grappling and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Oh, Craig used to dance. So, hey, you know, when you get back down to South America, Craig, when you get back down to Brazil, maybe you can incorporate some of that. Craig and I, we kind of bonded over a few things, and kettlebell was one of them. I'm kind of a meathead weightlifter who's kind of reforming and learning a few different things. So,
okay.
So you got there, you danced. By the way, can we see your dancing online? Can I go to YouTube and find you?
No. I don't think I've ever recorded myself dancing.
Well, you should do that, because the big surprise we're going to unload on everybody is where are you going next?
Brazil.
Coming to hang out with your
Yes.
I'll have to put you in contact with a few people who dance. I don't know if it's the same kind of dance, but if you're into that world, maybe I can introduce you to it. But
I did samba in New Orleans. I danced with the samba group in New Orleans. Now, my skills with that are lacking heavy, but I started taking classes and I performed with them once at a festival that we have in New Orleans.
Well,
I love samba.
Make that your mission between now and then. Get us some good footage. Get some good footage of you dancing. You know, this is a time in your life that even if you go back, you can never go back again. You'll regret not having video of you dancing in Santiago de Cali, Colombia. Like, I can see, you know, when my mustache is gray and your hair is gray, you'll regret not having that.
All right. I'll make that happen.
You know, I mean, you're going to go out between now and then. I would suspect, since you're planning a move, you're probably going to go dancing more just to get as much of it in as you can. Take your camera, take one of your friends and say, get 5 minutes every time I dance. Next time, just get as much as you can and enjoy it.
All right, I'll make that happen.
I want to go back to this language thing, because I've got a theory I've been developing, and I get shot down over it sometimes, about how language can be a way for people to really make it out of where they are to the next level. I'm seeing the world as becoming, and some people call it globalism. I'm not quite sure if this is going to apply that way. The world becoming a smaller place, but learning more than one language, no matter who you are, no matter what your original language is. I'm finding in my years of traveling, I've lived in 15 countries all over the world. I'm finding that the people who learn two languages have advantages that I'm still having a hard time articulating. I'm having a hard time even explaining how learning a second language and learning different words, it does exactly what the egghead scientists say. You know, and as an egghead nerd, I kind of understand it now. They said it opens up grooves in your brain that weren't there before. It's like chiseling wood and chipping in new designs into the wood. You can think of words that don't exist in other languages, and it allows you to have emotional thought that wasn't there before. Which is
definitely,
you know,
yeah, because there's some things you can't even translate into other languages. It's like the words don't even exist.
Yeah. Well, okay, my two favorite words to explain to someone something that doesn't work in any language that I've ever heard of outside of Brazilian Portuguese. And I'm going to mispronounce it because I'm not fluent. Saudade. Okay. It's Saudade. It's the longing or deep nostalgia. Hey, Kaidi Azix, how you doing? KD is a longtime friend. But saudades is a longing, a yearning for something, but it could be something you've never even had, but you miss, which is the most crude way of explaining it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's when you
something you never had, but you miss it. I'm trying to even think.
Exactly. For example, the best example I can give you is I listen to a lot of electronic music, and have you ever heard of like retro wave or synth wave?
No.
Do you remember the movie Blade Runner? Shout out to Rutger Hauer, rest in peace. But do you remember the movie Blade Runner?
No.
You're killing me, Smalls. You're killing me.
But explícame. Tell me.
Okay.
Let me know. Enlighten me.
It's like there's a type of electro music that was around in all the cheesy 80s movies with synthesizers. And Blade Runner was the movie, right? But it's had a huge resurgence. But what's interesting, the people creating the music on a high level are like 20 years old. They weren't even alive when that music was around, yet they feel like that was the music they should have had growing up.
Okay.
It is, yeah, or another one is a kafune. I could tell you it's rubbing someone's hair, but it's kind of more than that. It's an emotional thing, like a shared emotional thing of rubbing somebody's hair or head, but we'll talk about it when you get here. We'll talk about it when you get here. What I want to talk to you about language is the city you were born and raised in was?
New Orleans.
Now, this is a loaded question, okay? This is a trick question. I'm telling you this ahead of time.
Okay.
Why don't you sound like it?
Because my mother was an English teacher. Now it comes out. Trust me, it comes out. That's when my friend would say you can get Ebony or you can get Ebony. So yeah, it comes out, especially, you know, if I'm with my New Orleans people. But yeah, even people from New Orleans tell me that I don't really have the accent, but it slips out every now and then.
You know, you said your mother is an English teacher, and I talk about how my mother made sure I could read 3 grade levels ahead my whole life. My dad gave me books that were way above my head and often inappropriate, because you shouldn't let a child read horror, because that either meant he was a great dad or a terrible parent. I'm still not sure. But my grandmother made sure I knew public speaking. So as a child, I would have to recite passages from books and from letters and from just tons of things, because I have a speech impediment. I have a terrible lisp. But you can't hear it because I just went through years of that training. But one of the things that they knew that I appreciate now is the discrimination you get if you have an accent that is in any way associated with a fundamental level of education, regardless of where you are now, that wasn't there as a child. I have a cousin who's a PhD who wrote a great paper. A school called him and said, "We'd love for you to come and talk to our graduates about your thesis." He answered the phone. He has a deep Alabama accent. They changed their mind. That broke him. I mean, emotionally, that broke him.
Aww.
Because I didn't know how many actors and actresses are actually from places with thick accents, but they go through years of training to get rid of it. Is that a fair thing? Do you think that it makes the world a worse place that our parents made sure we had to sound the way that we do to get where we are?
I mean, the world shouldn't be like that. I mean, you know, an accent is an accent. Everyone has an accent, but that's the way the world works. And so it's just arming yourself with another tool. But yeah, we definitely have that, as we would call the white voice, the phone voice thing going on.
Now, see, that's
what people call it. But I don't feel that way about speaking proper English. But I was the person in high school, my friends and I, people would call us Oreos, like, "Oh, y'all black, but you sound white, you talk white." Like, what does that mean? Because I speak proper English? What's wrong with that?
Yeah, I wonder if that still happens in 2020.
I don't know.
I wonder
it definitely was happening in the 80s and the 90s. Hopefully it's not a thing. I hope it's not a thing.
Yeah,
it was definitely my experience.
That's so many tragedies that we have to unpause. Excuse me. Oh, wait a minute. Brother Craig Washington just left us an interesting comment. He said, and I'm going to read this out loud verbatim. He said, "Voice gentrification, code switching at its finest." That's brutal. Voice gentrification. Craig, I'm glad you put that there. I'm going to have to credit you with that, because that's something I'm going to have to put together a chat about. And you're going to be invited, Craig, and you will as well, Ebony. As a matter of fact, everybody in the chat's welcome to come. But voice gentrification. Because my question would be, is it appropriate to not speak your native language correctly? Is it gentrification for someone to lose a regional dialogue or a regional accent to learn, I don't know, stereotypical way, the King's English? Is that a bad thing? Is that something that in any way impedes who you are?
It's interesting.
Because Katie Isaacs calls it a corporate voice, which I can tell you in my career as a financial professional for many years, I can tell you as someone who does public speaking, as someone who, if you've ever, and people here know I coach a lot of people who do TED Talks and things like that for presentation, affect, stage presence. Oh, my own personal commercial. I do editing, copywriting, copy editing. I do everything from books to website pages. If you need yours done in clear, correct English, I write, I ghostwrite, but I also edit things other people have written for them. That's what guys can hire me for. But yeah, it's awkward because I was taught there's simply a right way and a wrong way. But I know a lot of people who felt like part of their identity was being attacked by saying this isn't how those words are pronounced. And as an adult, I can see how not just my family, but even my extended teachers would say, you don't understand that if you don't do this, it will hurt you later.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, and especially being from Louisiana, New Orleans, like we Earl for oil, or go get the Earl, or the sink for the kitchen sink. I mean, It's a lot of things. Yeah, around the corner. Yeah, we have a whole bunch of stuff going on.
Wow.
Yeah, we have a whole lot going on.
Because
it's interesting, even here. So at the school that I was teaching at, the principal is actually from New York. And so when I went in for the interview, she told me that when she saw my resume that I was from Louisiana, she was concerned that I would have like an accent.
And the fact that she would say that to you, was that a compliment?
You know, one of those backhanded compliments, because I've also gotten that, oh, you're so articulate. And it's like, well, why would you think I wouldn't be? Or what were you expecting? You know, when people say that.
It's interesting because people who say, wow, you're so articulate, it's often because they expect you to, I don't know, speak in broken syllables and monosyllabic words. Tommy Wheeler Jr. said, most blacks talk proper around white people and slang with blacks. Tommy, I wasn't allowed to do that. Matter of fact, my parents, they might have been the greatest or worst parents in the world, I don't know. They were mine. I knew that I would earn the rap, and I wasn't speaking clear, correct English. It didn't matter if I was the only person in the room. If they got wind that I wasn't speaking clearly and correctly the way I had been taught, it was just over. So by the time I was even in junior high school, I fundamentally sounded different from people that I was related to.
Right. No, I'm definitely one. If I'm comfortable with you or you my people, you're gonna get a whole nother thing going on.
I have friends that said it scared them the first time they called me. I said, why? When someone calls me, I always say good morning, or good afternoon, good evening. And I had my friend's wife said, because I called to talk to my buddy, his wife answers the phone, and I said, hey, good morning, and she hung up on me. So I checked my phone to make sure I had the right number. I called back. I said, hey, good, Pam, she hung up on me again. The next day, my buddy called me. He says, let me ask you a question. Did you call me yesterday? Yeah. What'd you say to my wife? I said, good morning, and she hung up on me. He said, she thought you were a telephone salesman.
Bill collector, telephone salesman. That's what you sound like.
I said, but all I said was good morning. He said, nobody answered the phone with good morning. Oh, by the way, what's behind you?
Huh?
What's behind you?
My love of salsa. So there's this printing shop here in Cali. And so these are all different salsa singers or salsa groups. but I did a collage on my wall.
Wow.
Yeah. So Grupo Nietzsche, popular group from here in Colombia, Cali. You can't see, I got Mr. Willie Colon over there. But I forgot, you're not into salsa, so you may not know these people. But yeah. La India up there. But yeah, it's my tribute to salsa.
And you had those custom made?
No, they sell these. So they will print some, and they're continuously printing. So you got to just keep going. There's always someone new that they're putting out.
Nice. So does my economic theory that teaching English anywhere in the world will earn a middle class or higher living hold true in Colombia?
Definitely. Definitely. Okay, well, it depends. So here in Colombia, the average monthly salary is about 700 pesos a month, which equates to about 250 US dollars. So I had some friends that were working in private schools that were earning 2 million a month. So 1.5 million is about 500 USD. So I had friends that were earning about 2 million to like 2.8 million a month. But at my school, which is one of the top schools in the city, so there's my school and then there's another one that pays really well. And so I was getting paid 6 million a month.
Good. Now, of
and
course,
that's me without a teaching degree. Now, I have a friend who has a bachelor's in education and a master's in education. And she was earning like over 8 million a month. But on top of like the salary, you also get housing and, you know, other things. They take care of your visa. They fly you home every 2 years. So there's other benefits as well.
Yeah, see, that sounds a lot like when I was in Tokyo. I was in Tokyo for a while. Mm-hmm. I tell people, Tokyo, if you're going to go the English language route, go to a place like Tokyo or China because they're very structured. They take care of everything. Then by the time you come someplace like Brazil or even your next country, you can be independent. You know, when I started my own business, I don't work for anyone's company. Excuse me. All my clients are my clients for my editing business or the ones that I do coaching on speaking. And you can earn, and here's the thing, you can earn a lot more than that if you have the right clientele and you have the right reference. I brought the same style of business that I did in my financial business to Brazil to set up my clientele here, and, you know, business around the world. So I'll even tell you, you know, if you do get to Brazil, we'll have to talk about it because I can introduce you to some people, but I would also say try your hand at starting your own business, your own group, and see how you can do with that. Because we have the advantage of, and these are a couple of advantages, some we earned, some we didn't. We were born American, that's a good one. But having a university degree, as well as, you know, I've got 2 university degrees, I think you've got 3, plus any kind of a teaching certification really gives you the ammunition to earn a considerable amount of money in a great number of places. You know?
Oh yeah, I mean, I live the life here. I travel. I live in one of the nicest neighborhoods. I earn so much money, I can't even spend it all.
Come on now. Trying to rub it on people. There are people watching this right now. Listen, you know what you just did?
I'm telling people, look.
On the list because people, if anybody wants to get in contact with her, y'all contact me, and she's gonna run it down for you on exactly how she gets the job done out there.
Yeah, look, I live a better life here teaching English than I did in the United States as a lawyer.
Wait, can you say that again? I don't think they heard you in the back row.
Right. I live a better life here teaching English than I did in the United States as a lawyer. Okay. And I was making money there, but of course, life is so expensive. Like, I could not, the quality of life that I have here in Colombia, I can't live like this in New Orleans. I can't live in the French Quarter of New Orleans and take Uber everywhere, shop in Whole Foods every day, have a lady come and clean my apartment once a week, go shopping, travel all the time, and like money ain't a thing. I just can't. that wasn't the reality. Because everything is just that much more expensive there.
Wow. And that's the thing. People don't understand. Everybody wants to believe, oh, well, you live in a different country. It must be awful. You keep believing that shit. But you know what I do is instead of berating anybody, I say this all the time. I like to leave the door open. Anybody that gives me an indication that they want more information, I open the door for them. I'm not going to be one of those people that says, oh, I'm going to keep this secret for myself. Anybody who wants any information at all, hey, let me know. I'm here for you. But what you just said about that lifestyle, because for you, maybe it's travel. For me, people who know me know I like to dabble in my investments, my cryptocurrency, different things like that. And I'm fortunate. None of my hobbies are extraordinarily expensive. Between going to the gym and other stuff, you can do what I call, you can make a balance with yourself. Doing what we do, you can either work the same number of hours you worked in the United States and make a ton more money as far as living well, or you can do the opposite. You can earn slightly more than you need, but work a lot less.
Yes.
You know, so I work, but I'm not working those long days like I did as a financial professional, because I like to be able to say in the evening, I can go lift weights. You know, I can go hang out with my friends. I can do things that I couldn't before because I had the big house, 4 or 5 bedrooms, hot tub, swimming pool, 3-car garage, a man that came to clean my pool. That, and plus,
you were living better than me.
Yeah, you're living it, but you're like, well, why am I spending all this money?
Yeah.
You know? And is this your first outing? Is this your first outing outside the United States, living there?
Yeah, my first time living abroad. Had never been to Colombia. Just decided, brought a ticket, came, and been here 2.5 years.
Well, I love this part because I'm going to say something to you that a traveler said to me when I was a fresh traveler. He said 2 things. He said, 1, you realize you're poisoned, right? Like you understand there may be something in your mind that says, eventually maybe I'll go back to the United States. The trick is you will always know there's someplace else you can go. And more importantly, you're going to know for certain that you can succeed there. So now you're in an awkward situation.
Oh, yeah.
I'm traveling and going back to the United States. And then I would have a day where one of my clients would do something with their money that I specifically said don't do. And I would think to myself, you know what? I could be on a plane anywhere in the world, get off the plane and be just fine. You will never stop. Even if you don't go to other countries, living at home again is going to be a very difficult thing. And we should have a conversation about that with other people, because the other thing I'll tell you is it's not them, it's you. How often do you visit the US?
I went home once in 2.5 years. I went for a week and the week was too long. I couldn't wait to leave. I don't think I could live in the United States again after this.
And when I tell you this, that it's not them, it's you, there are a few, I'm going to say, things that sound stuck up, but unfortunately happen to be true that happen when you start traveling. 1, the circle of friends that you have, they may not be good or better, they not be good or bad people, better or worse people, but the people that you're around are other people who have seen the world. So now the style of conversation that you have is going to revolve a lot more around issues that are not local. You're going to be hearing about what it's like in another country that you may want to go to. You're going to know that going to that country is an option for you. You're going to hear people talking about politics in a different way. You're going to understand American politics in a way that's totally different outside the United States. You know, and when you go back, the same people that you love will say something to you and you're like, oh, that's awesome. And then they say to you, so what have you been doing? How do I tell you that I've spent the last month deciding where in the world I want to be?
Yeah.
That's a difficult thing because there's no way to say that without sounding like a total asshole, even if you're not.
Right. No, it's very true. I mean, yeah, as you said, I'm one country in, but yeah, once you get a part into the expat circle and you start meeting people and it's like, oh yeah, I just came here from Germany, or I was in Spain, or I was living And like I had a friend who's Canadian. She lived in Japan for like 8 years and lived somewhere else a couple of years before coming to Colombia. Like you just meet people, yeah, like you say, that have been all over and have different experiences that they're bringing to the table for sure.
But now here's the thing I do want to go back to so that we don't alienate some of the viewers. One, what we do is possible. One of the reasons I do things like this is to tell people it's not like I'm not magic and I'm not special.
And neither am I.
Because it's totally possible to see the world, to do all the things that you want to do. The thing I tell people that scares them the most is when they say, oh, what, how can I do this? And they find out it's not expensive.
No.
Now it scares them because that's the first thing they say, oh, I don't know if I can do that. Well, don't I have to have a double PhD in English and linguistics to teach now? How about I show you online? You can spend a couple $100. Some of them are as cheap as 30 or 50 online.
I was going to say you can get Groupon for $30 and get a TEFL.
Man. So now they're in a situation where if I can arm you with a way to make money traveling, show you that you have enough education to do it, that's when it gets awkward. That's when they look at me.
I'm a person, I had never lived outside of Louisiana. I'm from New Orleans. I attended college. I went to LSU in Baton Rouge, went back to New Orleans for a year. Then I went back to Baton Rouge to go to law school at Southern University, and then went back to New Orleans. Like I had never lived outside of Louisiana.
Wow.
Before I moved to Colombia.
Wow. I had never lived outside the United States before moving to Colombia. I wish you could fit that on a hat.
Yeah, I never even lived outside of my state in the United States before I moved here. Like the main thing is you are the only person, for anyone who's watching this that wants to do it, you are the only thing that's stopping you. Whatever that dialogue that goes on in your mind, all of the reasons that we come up with why we can't do it, or, thinking about all the things that can go wrong, you are the only person that is stopping you. Like, it's not rocket science. Like, just decide. You just decide and then take the steps to do it. Sell your stuff, put it in storage, give it away or whatever, put in your notice at your job. And especially when you're coming to countries like Colombia, because you have to keep in mind the value of the dollar versus the Colombian peso. So you don't even need that much money to come here and get started, as you would probably think. I mean, you can come with $2,000, $3,000, $4,000. I've known people who did it with less. The fact that you are American and you are a native English speaker, you will find a job. If it's not in one of the private schools, there are plenty of language institutes. And then, I mean, even still outside of that, like I know plenty of people who just teach private lessons because so many people want to learn English. And so they just teach people that they come encounter with. I mean, 99.9% of the Ubers that I get in, it happens. Yeah, I want to learn English. Do you give classes? Like it's not hard. You can do it.
And I would also say, once you develop a little bit of business sense for yourself, a little bit of, this is how I can organize things, goes a long way. It goes a very long way. Can I just to balance out the conversation, can you tell me some of the things about Colombia that are unpleasant? Some of the things, so we give people a balance, because there's no perfect place in the world.
No.
Not a perfect place. Brazil is an awesome place, but I can tell you it has its setbacks just like the United States. Can you give us some things to balance out the awesomeness of Colombia?
Definitely. Okay, so where should I begin? So I'll start with just being a foreigner first. Presents challenges with renting an apartment, with getting bank accounts and things of that nature. It's challenging being a foreigner. Like Here you need what's called a fiador, which is basically a co-signer. But of course, if you're a foreigner, what Colombian do you know that can co-sign for you to get an apartment? So that's a challenge. But for me, because I was at a school that deals with foreigners, they know the situation, and so they co-sign for my apartment. So that's one thing. Just being American is another thing that you have to deal with. You know, it's like people hold you accountable for things that your country does. You know, so that sometimes that can get a little irritating with people having these preconceived notions about who you are as a person solely based on the fact that you are American. Like, people forget that America is a country of immigrants, that it's 323 million people, that even within the country, we have white people, Black people, Asian people, you know, and within the Asians, we have Vietnamese and Chinese and Japanese, and like, we are all different. And so sometimes just dealing with the stereotypes. Another thing that's annoying is people thinking that because you're American that you're rich, you know, and then you having to pay what we call the gringo tax. You know, people hear the accent and they automatically want to try to charge you 3 times more because they figure like, oh, you're American, which can be frustrating as well. What else? You know, at this point, being here 2.5 years, something that's like starting to be an issue. I mean, it's not really a thing, but it is a thing for me, is always having to be on the defense sometimes can get a little tiring.
Wait, I don't quite get that part.
So I'm going to explain. You know, because it's a country where on average people are earning $250 US a month, like poverty is huge here. And just things of always just having to be alert, because like petty theft and robbery, like those, it's high. And so just always having to be on alert. Like sometimes I just miss the comfort of, and not saying because this happens in New Orleans, like I've read plenty of times about people walking on Bourbon Street in the French Quarter and someone like grabs their iPhone 10 and jets off. But I feel like it doesn't happen as frequently because our level of poverty is different. Whereas, you know, even our quote unquote poor people, like everyone has an iPhone. So it's not really a thing. So that's to me, again, what my, as we would say, first world problems, things that it's not really an issue, but just sometimes I wish I could just be outside and walk around and not always have to be on like code red alert.
Then I think you'll enjoy Sao Paulo, Brazil. I mean, I can't speak for the entirety of the country, but where I am and what I do, I mean, there is a place called Paulista Avenue, which is the main street of Sao Paulo. It's very famous and historic. Every now and then you hear about a foreigner walking around with their phone doing the foreigner thing and somebody yank it and run. But it's one of those things where people say, oh, well, isn't Brazil dangerous? And I say, well, sure. What neighborhood are you talking about? And they go, well, Brazil, because apparently you're supposed to get murdered in the face as soon as you get out of in Brazil. And they don't realize it's an enormous country, just like the United States, where there are places you don't go and there are places that are just fine. It's
right. And it's the same here. Don't get me wrong. Like, I've been here 2.5 years. Nothing has happened to me, but I know people who have gotten robbed for sure. But it's the same. Like I tell people all the time, I live in a bubble here. I live in one of the nicer neighborhoods. It's just like you said, it's just like the United States. There's good neighborhoods, there's bad, quote unquote, bad neighborhoods. And crime travels, of course, because people know that, you know, the so-called affluent neighborhoods. And so maybe people come into those areas. Like there's this one area, it's called San Antonio, which when you speak to Colombians, it's been heavily gentrified. I mean, it's the area where all the expats are, where most of the hostels are. And so there's a lot of robberies in that area just because people know that's where the foreigners are.
Yeah, see, I don't live in a place where I'm the only foreigner. I'm the only foreigner for blocks, I think. I mean, for a long stretch away from my house. But that's a good thing about living in a place where I live in just a neighborhood.
Yeah.
So nobody's targeting us. Listen, thank you for going into that. Is there anything I forgot to talk to you about Colombia? Is there anything that I wouldn't have known to ask?
No, I really can't say. I mean, it's a great country. What's interesting is that it's become so popular since I've moved here, and I've only been here 2.5 years. Now it's like everywhere you look, everyone's coming to Colombia. In the Facebook group for the expats in Colombia, and we have like a WhatsApp group, and there's tons of people now that are just coming through. And what's more interesting is that, of course, everyone was flocking to Medellin, and of course, a lot of people go to Cartagena, but people were afraid to come to Cali. But now there's like so many people that are coming here, and it's becoming like a part of the, I guess, the tour of Colombia, which is interesting.
Well, with Brazil, I think it's a language issue because Brazil is a South American country that speaks Portuguese and not Spanish. So that's a big barrier. But at the same time, the foreigners that are here, we get a little bit of a boost because I would suspect that there are far more foreigners from the United States in Colombia than there are in Brazil by a huge stretch. Well, here's the difference. Spanish is very accessible in the United States.
Yeah.
I don't know anyone in the United States who's ever studied Portuguese at all.
Very true. Very true.
So even though you weren't fluent when you got there, the fundamentals, you weren't going to be.
Oh, yeah, definitely. That's why I felt okay to come here.
Right. And for me, like I did about a couple months of Duolingo Portuguese, which I love Duolingo, and I tell people it's not going to teach you how to speak a language, but it can teach you how to read and write in that language so that you're never stranded. I can look at a map and know what part of the city I'm in. I can look at the bus and say, this is where that bus is going. And that's what stops me from being illiterate. And then, of course, with language, you get around, you get to talking to people, you have to really fight hard to get out of the bubble to have friends who only speak Portuguese and let them suffer through, you desperately stuttering through a point that might take them a minute to articulate, but you got to use every word and sweat your ass through it for 10 minutes to get a simple point across. And I know that I'm behind in my studies because I have a friend, she sent me a very interesting article on one of the financial structures here, and I couldn't read it. And she said it was a tragedy that I had been here that long and couldn't read a financial newspaper yet.
Yeah, I can say I've been on Duolingo for Portuguese, and it's.
What level are you at?
Me thinking. I'm still, I think I got to the, what was I on? Like foods and
you got to do it every day, 15 minutes a day.
I do, but I'm still, it's the pronunciation.
Right.
It's difficult. Right. It's difficult.
Yeah.
It's for me, it's not so hard because a lot of the words are similar to Spanish so that I can pick it up easily. But yeah, the pronunciation, I'm like, oof, this is rough.
Chris, there is no double R in Portuguese.
Wait, what did you say?
There's no double R.
No. Okay.
Small things like that make a huge difference. Listen, I'm not going to keep you any longer, but I will say this to everybody watching. The two things I want everybody to do, because it's free, so why not? One, make sure you click the subscribe button because I don't know if any of you are on my social media, on my Instagram, on my Twitter. I had 400 subscribers for a channel that I started just to talk to my friends about their life, and I have great friends. I want everybody to please hit subscribe and hit that little bell, but also more importantly, copy this link and share it in one place. I don't care if it's on your Facebook, on your Instagram, on your Twitter. Share it and be like, hey, this guy does interesting stuff. Because the things we talk about here, I talk a lot about money, I talk a lot about travel, and I have these big group roundtable discussions. What was the roundtable discussion you were just in with us?
So we were talking about the challenges of being a quote unquote first successful person. And do you decide to fund yourself or like your parents or
yeah,
your
we had a
kids?
financial discussion. Ooh.
Yeah.
Have you caught up with the last two I've done with my buddy Jeremy? We've done some economic talks.
You did some since we had ours? I don't
Yeah.
think you sent me the link because I saw the one before. Is that the guy from Barbados where
Yes.
you guys were talking about the cryptocurrencies? I did
Yeah,
see
but
that.
we did another one. You get the notifications, don't you?
I don't know. I'm going to have to make sure I do because that was very interesting and I enjoyed that. And since then, I started studying cryptocurrencies. I found out one of my girlfriends who lives in Miami was into it. She sent me some Bitcoin. And so now I go on there like every day and I check it to see like if it's rising or falling. So
you know, I'm not that guy. I do a buy and hold strategy, whereas I buy something and I just leave it. I'm not trying to check every day, but don't let yourself get seduced. It's all about the long term, just like any other financial tool. Did she give you any material to read on cryptocurrency?
No.
So
no, we've been talking about it and I've Googled it. So I learned about the dark web and the Silk Road and all of that stuff that was going on.
No, Google is not your friend. Okay, stop that. Stop that. Google is not your friend.
Okay.
I'm going to send you something. I'm going to say, I'm going to put it here in the chat. And I'm going to say, okay. Ebony, read and learn this on Bitcoin. I'll leave you with this. There is a place called the University of Nicosia out of Greece that has two professors, one of which is extraordinarily famous for cryptocurrency, named Andreas Antonopoulos. They do a free 12-week course that I did for 12 weeks. There's a difference between...
I'm excited.
There's a difference between buying and selling cryptocurrency and understanding how it works. Once I started to understand how it works, my goodness, it changed everything.
All right, I'm on it because I'm very intrigued.
So listen, we're going to say goodbye to everybody else, and then you and I are going to take 5 minutes afterwards because there's some super secret awesome stuff about you coming to Brazil I want to say, all right?
Okay.
So wait until it says stop broadcast. Thanks, everybody. Love you all. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.